Hi everybody, welcome to a new episode of your Frederish Cast. My name's Gary and here I am once again. And what am I gonna talk about today with you guys? Well, in case you haven't just read the title or you already know from somewhere, you saw the title, the topic we're talking today. Of course, you already know, everybody already knows because it's almost inevitable not to read the title of the episode before clicking play to it. So I'm talking about New York bestseller, New York Times bestseller book, Power of the Psychology, no, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, aka in Brazil as Armas da Persuasão by Dr. PhD Robert Cialdini. It's a book published in the 90s, in the late 90s, if memory serves me well. And it's a bestseller, as I said, and it goes, as the title suggests, about the mental triggers we have. The author, as far as I remember, does not use this terminology in this book, but I'm gonna use it here because that's what they are, okay? Triggers, mental triggers. He goes over the mental tricks used by salespeople and every kind of influencer wannabe out there. Okay, I kind of put it in a negative sense. I know, I get it. That's not my prime intention, I promise. But I gotta admit that I have to talk about it with a little skepticism. I mean, not about the book, but about the reason that made me read the book first of all, okay? Because I'm gonna talk more about it. Just as usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to ask you to go grab a cup of coffee, tea, beer, whatever it takes for you to relax and come with me. We're gonna talk more about it starting as of right now. Let's go. So as I was saying, the book goes in the direction of checking the triggers, the mental triggers that are used by salespeople and influencers or anyone who wants to try to influence you somehow. Okay, so this is not negative. Okay, let me just put it in advance. These are not naturally negative principles. These are existing principles that Dr. Cialdini successfully managed to translate into a masterpiece called the book I'm just talking about. All right, so nothing against that, but I'm gonna have to be pretty honest with you guys. I don't remember ever talking about it, but I don't want to use the word hate, but I pretty much dislike the so-called, or according to me, aggressive marketing. Okay, so what is an aggressive marketing in 101, in simple terms, in simple words? Selling or trying to sell something to someone who does not need that thing, at least not at that moment. Okay, so in our area, in the language teaching area, it's pretty common that in the big companies out there, I don't mean to be unethical, so I'm not gonna name names. Don't ask me, guys. Just let it go. But you know who I'm talking about, or what I'm talking about, if you will. So, I'm gonna be the first person to say to someone who needs to learn English, hey, go get a course. Okay, go get a teacher, or do that, learn on your own, buy books, do something, start, but I would never say that everybody should start taking English classes at any time. Okay, there's this thing, as far as my understanding goes, called momentum, called timing, more specifically. What are momentum and timing? Actually, I got the word momentum wrong. Okay, so just let it go. Timing. Okay, so what is this timing according to me here in this perspective? I'm talking to you guys. Well, what good can any English course do if the student is going through a harsh period in their time, in their life? Okay, say she lost someone they really loved, or is facing a disease or depression, or it's really downish for some reason. What are the goods out of starting a course? I would never show the green flag to any of my students to start a classes if they're not going through a at least okay period. Okay, don't get me wrong. Perfect periods, perfect moments do not exist. All right, so of course that's not what I'm saying. But what if you're going through a harsh period in your life? If not emotional, financial. Well, ladies and gents, this is Brazil. Economic problems, economic difficulties is it's redundant in Brazil. And I'm not saying at the same time that the salespeople should starve. That's not what I'm saying. I really believe it could or should be possible to get to the right people at the right time with the right strategy. But that's not exactly the point of this episode. So I'm gonna just skip to Malu. Skip to the next to the main point. Cut to the chasing, as they say. So yeah, okay. In the book, Robert Cialdini, Dr. Cialdini goes through the mental triggers, as I mentioned before, that help influence us, for good or bad, to say yes to people. Who are these people? Let us remember it. Salespeople and influencers, okay? But basically, I could summarize that by saying that people who want you to say yes to them. So be that a flirting person, especially if you're a girl, if you're listening to me. So yeah, boys could use that to flirt with you, or even girls. I don't know what is your thing, what team you play in. So, but nevertheless, the strategy is the same, right? The principle is how inclined you are, depending on the circumstances and the situations, to say yes to something that perhaps, only perhaps, you wouldn't have said yes. You could have said maybe, or even a no, or even a hell no, but not necessarily yes, and you ended up saying yes. Okay, hasn't it ever happened to you? Well, it happened to me many, many times, and I have to confess that after reading this book, I will never, this may happen to me again, but I will never be caught off guard, okay, as they say. And as I said before, this is the main and very reason why I started reading this book, and I really recommend you to start doing the same. No matter if that's not your cup of tea. Oh, it's psychology. I work with, I'm an engineer. Come on. Just read this book. This is one must read, okay? So what are these mental triggers so interesting, Gary, you're talking about, man? Let's do it. I'm glad you should ask it. Let's just check them out. So just as usual, I'm having my co-host on this podcast, my big buddy ChatGPT, to help me summarize the quote-unquote key principles, according to me, mental triggers, approached by Dr. Cialdini in this book. Okay, so let's just start reading what the ChatGPT has got to tell us. So, Robert Cialdini's Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, outlines 6 key principles, mental triggers, that explain how people are influenced and persuaded. These principles are based on psychological research and real-world observations. Below is a summary of each of these principles. So let's take a look at them. Principle number 1, reciprocity. People feel obligated to return favors or acts of kindness. Oh, let me just read it with more detailed. People feel compelled to return favors, gifts, or acts of kindness. This principle is rooted in human psychology and social norms. For example, if a store offers free samples, customers may feel obligated to buy the products. Similarly, when someone gives us a small favor, we are more likely to help them in return. Marketing and sales. How does it apply to marketing and sales? Companies use this principle by offering free trials, bonuses, or gifts with purchases. Charities also use it by sending small gifts, for example, address labels, in fundraising campaigns. Well, just a quick comment, this reciprocity principle is so powerful that, well, to the very present day, after having read this book, after having meditated about this principle, as Dr. Cialdini says, I still feel compelled every time to buy something, every time I get like free samples of anything in a shop. And that's why I never really take these free samples in a shop, in a store, unless I am aware and convinced that I'm going to end up buying something. Well, if my intention in that store is just to keep an eye, to take a look, check the prices, I will never say yes to any kind of gift, any kind of bonuses or perks or whatever. Second principle is commitment and consistency. This is a pretty interesting one. Let's take a look. Once people commit to something, they strive to act consistently or consistently with that commitment. This is because inconsistency can create discomfort, cognitive dissonance. For example, if someone publicly states they will do something, like a New Year's resolution, they are more likely to follow through because they made it publicly. In marketing and sales, it's used by businesses by getting customers to make small initial commitments. For example, a car dealer might get a customer to agree to a small request, like a test drive, making them more likely to purchase later. Yeah, this is so true. The same goes, as I said before, about the never taking gifts from shops. I never do test drives unless I really am convinced that there are significant chances of me buying the car. Other than that, I just run from it, and I get like offers every month from car dealers. You probably get the same, so yeah. Third principle, social proof. When uncertain, people look to the actions of others to determine appropriate behavior. This effect is stronger when the people being observed are similar to us. For example, a crowded restaurant is perceived as having better food than an empty one, and online reviews influence purchase decisions. How is it used by marketing and sales? Businesses use customer testimonials, star ratings, and phrases like best selling or most popular to persuade potential buyers. Well, this is not a new thing to anyone, right? Have you ever been to a restaurant? Like, you and your family are the first people arriving at it, and then a few minutes later there are like 4 or 5 extra families in there. It happens to me a lot, I even joke about it with my family, say, hey, we're so special that wherever we go we bring customers. We should talk to the shop owner and get a discount or even eat there for free. Of course, it's a joke. It is consistently related to this principle, to this mental trigger. We're reading about the social proof. This is really strong, guys. Don't you ever underestimate it. This is one of the reasons why in the nightclubs They every time we pass in front of a nightclub, there is a long line. I mean, not all the time, but almost every night there are long lines with people, young people, attractive people waiting to get in. And truth of the matter, if you know anyone who's ever worked in one of these nightclubs, is a big strategy. You know, first of all, there will be a lot of attractive young people in front of it. So other young people, attractive or perhaps not so attractive, will go like, "Hey, I need to get there. There are attractive people inside, so let me do the same." Or by the thing of it must be good, because if there's this long line, there must be lots of people inside, you know? But little do we know that when there's a long line at the very beginning of the night, chances are it's not even open, you know? The people in the cashier place isn't even operating, you know? And why aren't they operating? Because of this very own strategy I'm talking about. Okay, mental trigger or principle number 4, liking. People are more likely to be influenced by those they like or find attractive, relatable, or familiar. For example, we are more likely to say yes to requests from friends or people we admire. In marketing and sales, advertisers use attractive spokespeople, celebrity endorsements, and influencers to build rapport with their audience. Salespeople often use small talk to find common ground before making a pitch. Well, this is so true. This is also, there's a kind of a negative definition to it. That is the sense of which totally links to the item before, the social proof. That is the so-called herd effect. Okay, herd, H-E-R-D, a word that gets translated by bando. In Portuguese, we say efeito manada. When we see people doing things, you know, there are studies of like one person unaware of what's going on in a room with, say, 20 other people or in a public place, but all the other people around this tested person, start doing something apparently senseless, pointless. Raising one arm, you know? They just start raising one arm. And 95% of the times, the person unaware of what's going on does the very same thing. No matter how senseless this is, but they do, you know? So you have an idea of how powerful this aspect is. All right, principle number 5, authority. This is a no-brainer, you know? This doesn't take a very, very smart brain to figure out. People tend to obey figures of authority, often without questioning them, due to societal conditioning. This effect is stronger when authority is perceived as legitimate. For example, studies like the Milgram experiment show that people will follow orders from an authoritative figure, even if it causes harm. In marketing and sales, businesses use doctors in medical advertisements, people in uniforms for security-related services, or experts in their field to increase credibility and trust. Well, this is the easiest to understand, right? Because of course, authority is something embedded, quote unquote, in us from the very beginning of our existence on Earth, isn't it? So there's always a leader, there's always a figure of authority, someone we can totally trust and rely, you know, trust and rely on, basically, right? And more than that, relate to, because usually these authorities are people responsible for the place we live, etc., etc. Of course, it goes beyond that. It can be, and it usually is, a authority based on knowledge, right? Like someone who really knows something about something, advocating basically, or advertising for a product or something. And last but not least, scarcity. Definitely not least, scarcity. People perceive limited resources as more valuable, triggering a fear of missing out, the so-called FOMO. For example, sales that use phrases like limited time only or only a few left in stock drive urgency and increase purchasing behavior. In marketing and sales, retailers often use flash sales, exclusive memberships, or countdown timers to create a sense of urgency. Yeah, today, anything you're going to buy, especially online, there is this countdown timer, like, hey, this offer ends in 24 hours or even 12 hours. I saw before 6 minutes. I mean, what the hell, 6 minutes? Can I even think about it, about buying it? And I'm not talking about buying something small and cheap. I'm talking about buying a course or something, Do I have only 6-7 minutes to think about it? For Christ's sake. So yeah, scarcity is it's so true, and it's such a powerful mental trigger that the author uses it at the very beginning of the book, telling a story of something of a friend of a friend who had a shop selling some things, jewelry or whatever, and she was not managing to sell it properly. I mean, in fact, she was not selling any of the jewelry. She lowered the price, kept lowering the price, and nothing. One day, she was like, this person was really fed up with the situation and said, you know what? Let me just cut the price in half and sell it all out, even if I take the losses and go home, basically, and move to something else. But in her message, the employee, her assistant, her staff worker misunderstood her, thinking that actually she had to double the price, and she did so, and turned out that all of the jewelry was sold when the price was double. Yeah, I didn't get it wrong. I said that's what it is in the book. That's what is in the book at the very beginning of it. She doubled the price of the jewelry, and then they got sold, quickly. How do you explain that other than the sense of scarcity? I mean, in this very story, there's a little bit of scarcity and there's a little bit of liking and social proof, I would say, because every time we see something expensive, we think, hey, it is expensive for a reason, right? And most of the times, yeah, but not all the times, isn't it? So yeah, this is a quick summary, ladies and gents, of this very interesting book. I'm reading it again, so maybe I'll bring some more approaches, some more talk about this amazing piece of work brought to us by Dr. Cialdini, and I really, really recommend you to read it, no matter your acting area. Okay, so this will be all for this week. Thank you so very much one more time for your lovely company. I see you in the next episode. Bye bye.